We're now going to walk through the minimal amount of information that you need to know about Kumu to create your first project. So go ahead and go to kumu.io and log into Kumu. It will take you to your dashboard page, which is probably empty because you haven't created any relationship maps as of yet. So either click on, once you get there, either click on New Project up here or down here. They're the same. It will start a new project and simply call it my first map, and you can just put a extended description in here or leave it blank. And I'm just going to put learning about Kumu mapping. So create a public project. It will then go ahead and load Kumu, which, as I said, is completely web-based. And it will present you with this video that is only a couple minutes long that you can watch about getting started with Kumu, which probably covers essentially the same information that I'm going to present here. Once you get into this new project, there's a title for this map that you're going to create, and by default it's called map. In Kumu, what you create are projects. They're referred to as projects as opposed to maps. And within a project you actually have multiple maps, which is why here the default is map and it says switch maps, because you could in fact have multiple maps within a project. On the right hand side is the canvas where you will create the map. On the left hand side is referred to as the profile page. This is the profile page for the entire map. When you create elements or connections or loops, there is a profile page for every entity that you create. So we'll go ahead and start pretty much the same way that we did with Insight Maker. So I'll create an element and I'll call it Tom. And then I'll create another element and call it Jerry. Where did it put Jerry? Jerry here? I don't know. I think oh, there's Jerry way up there. Then I want to add a connection between the two of them, so I will go ahead and click on Tom and say add connection and start typing Jerry, which will come up in the list. I'll click on it, hit enter, and I now have a connection between Tom and Jerry. I don't know why they floated off the screen. Over here, everything in this environment you can pan around, you can move things around, you can zoom in, zoom out. This is a zoom to fit option. These are some share options that aren't relevant here. And the question mark is for help. The help information online about Kumu is marvelous, very well done. So you can select here the help page, which will help you. The help document, as I said, very well done. This is the same getting started video that it presented you at the beginning. There's also some online tutorials and a blog, and here is a help about Kumu created in Kumu. Just I mean, if it's really a marvelous environment, you should be able to create the documentation for whatever it is in itself. So, and here are all of the shortcuts that you are likely to find beneficial over time as you get more familiar with Kumu. But at this point, we have a relationship between Tom and Jerry. Notice that if I select Tom, over here on the left is the profile page for Tom. Every element comes with, well, every entity that you create in Kumu has a profile page, as I said, and a few aspects that come with it is it has the ability to specify a type, one or more tags, a description, and add a picture. We'll talk about attributes at some future point. So, and for Jerry, the same thing. There's a profile page for Jerry. The connection at the moment simply says connection between Tom and Jerry because it's not specifically identified in any more detail, though I can come up here and select this and say chases. So now the same way that I did with Insight Maker, I can put a label on the connection to actually define the relation. Now this is a relation between Tom and Jerry, but currently there are no arrows on it. I can select that, come down here for direction and say that it is directed. I can also reverse it or say that it's mutual, but in this case what we really want is simply to indicate that Tom chases Jerry. Now you can continue to add elements and connections in this fashion. It's the only way to add the initial ones, though it is much easier in that if you hold down the Alt key and simply drag from one, this is another element, and hold down the Alt key even more. Alright, and if you then decide that you want to create a connection from two existing elements, hold down the Alt key and simply drag from one to the other, and it will connect that. Now notice that everything is floating at the moment, and sometimes that's appropriate and sometimes it's not. You can select an item and come down here and select pin, and if you do that, then it will pin them so they are no longer floating. The ones that aren't pinned are floating, and if you click on the B key, you can see quickly what's fixed and what's floating. You can also click it and unpin it so that it's now floating again, depending upon what you want to do. Over here on the profile for the map itself, you can set defaults so that new elements created are floating or fixed, depending upon and whether or not new connections created are undirected, directed, or mutual. So that oftentimes for doing relationship models, I usually want them initially to float, but I do want them directed so that when I create a new link from an element to something else, it does come with a direction already affixed to it. So that's really all you need to know to create a relationship map in Kumu. It's, as I said, it's a very deep product in terms of the very extensive array of capabilities, which you probably noticed when you looked at the various maps in the Explorer segment as a result of the last video. But this will in fact get you started. If you want to get rid of an item, you simply select it and hit the delete key and it will go away. You can delete links in the same way. Simply select the link and hit delete and it will go away, and you can then go ahead and add additional connections. And you can curve, well, if you fix the items, that's pinned. If I then pin this, I can take this curve and I can go ahead. If the items are pinned, I can adjust the curves to the way that I want them to, or want them to be, as opposed to having them be floating. I mean, if all of the elements are floating, you modifying the curvature of the connections doesn't make any sense, because it will change the curvature as it moves them around and when they're floating back and forth. Now, when you click on an item to select it, and I said the profile page for it is on the left, in the description field you can enter text, and this field is all formatted in something called Markdown. If you're not familiar with it, Markdown is one of the simplest set of formatting conventions ever devised for working in a web environment. And if you're not familiar with it, you can simply select here and it will take you to the page in the help guide that describes the markdown language, and it's about 2 pages long. So until it is initially, you can just go ahead and enter a text to describe the element and click done, or click any place outside of the field, and you can provide a description for connections as well. This is what Tom spends his day doing. Click back out of it, so that Chases now has a description. And if you were to come here and simply delete this and then tell it OK, it would change the connection title label back to connection from Tom to Jerry, and it wouldn't show up any longer. So, but if you change it from the default, then the label will show up on the connection. So, an introduction to creating relationship maps in Kumu. Very straightforward. My recommendation is spend time, play with it, build some, submit them for review, and comment, and trial and learning. Like riding a bicycle, just work at it. So, hope you found this useful, meaningful, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.